All systems go. Clear for liftoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tambo, a.k.a. ToeTagginTambo, back for another edition, the final edition of this season for the Takedown Breakdown here on the Ship It Nation YouTube station. Got my guy Nades here with me as usual. Going to break down the Week 17 slate. Hope everyone out there is having an amazing holidays. Hopefully your holidays are as good as the man, Peter Gibbons, $3+ million yesterday. They do not have those lineups ready yet over on Labs or Results DB ready to go through, but shout out to him. Little known fact, his name's not Peter, but congrats to my man. He got the job done yesterday, first and second in the big 33-33. And Nades, we'll go through it in a second. We'll get to the perfect lineup. We'll break down the $20 Millie Maker. It was a route there, very close to the optimal, and break down the slate and some of the stuff we saw. But man, tell me something more impossible than finding a link for anything to do with people playing for millions of dollars. FanDuel Live Final yesterday, no clue. Can't find a link anywhere. 555 DK, Millie Sweat, where it's a best ball Millie Sweat. Can't find it. I did find the link for like the main best ball Millie Sweat, but you just can't find any of these links. These sites couldn't do a worse job of promoting these events when they're happening. It kills me every time.
Yeah, just horrible marketing from a business aspect, right? I mean, the whole goal of showcasing this is to get more people to want to go into it, right, and spend, especially for next season, right? And the fear of missing out carries over, right? Just a terrible job of marketing. I mean, that's the main Twitter page should post that link out as soon as the slate locks. Hey, everyone follow along so everybody can have access to the link. It just makes the most sense, right? I mean, you want to market this stuff. This is your Super Bowl of fantasy sports for all year, right? For people spending billions of dollars on your site throughout the season. Granted, obviously they love that and they don't really care about probably getting more, but any smart business owner, right, would want to market their most coveted events. And I couldn't find any links anywhere. It was pretty shitty to try and help sweat out with. I know our guy Kenny was – or not Kenny, Sheets was in the FanDuel one. I know we had some members in the Mega, including yourself and Hoop and that. So yeah, it was just pretty brutal to be able to sweat. They're always fun sweats, even when you're not in them, right? Just to see how the people construct their lineup, especially you and I, right? That take a look at everything and kind of look back and try and reverse engineer, right, these kind of lineups out into those kind of contests, because you and I play a lot of satellites, right? And most times when we get into those kind of contests, if we do, we have far less than majority of the field does, right? So trying to reverse engineer things out that way, and just brutal job by both the main sites, FanDuel and DraftKings, to publish those. But yeah, congratulations to Peter Gibbons and everyone else who had hell of a Sundays. I know our guy NYG fan was on the show with us once a while back, right? He had himself a really good day. $221 on the main slate, cash for almost $50,000. Plenty of other members. I know our guy Donnie Draper had a pretty solid main slate as well, and many others. But looking forward to breaking this one down. I think this is pretty when we review the $20 Millie Maker winner, I think it's pretty sharp on how the user themselves actually kind of navigated the chalk with still playing chalk, but building it differently than what the field. I mean, they only had 4 lineups getting all the way there in that main lotto contest there. So overall, pretty good Sunday.
Yeah, some of the members just saw it here, $37 into 6,000, $72 into 39.30, $14K into 84K, 17.5 for Josh Shocks, Enwara with 15,000. I mean, I hate these payout structures sometimes, but nothing feels worse than when you get this payout drop and you're right there. It's actually nicer to me if you're going to get second place when you're like 8 points behind first and they really kind of got you. So I think that's the key for sure. And we'll talk more about that throughout. If you guys do want to join us over at Ship It Nation, PGA is just around the corner. I will make a couple quick notes and then we'll hop into this episode, but just going to join the nation when you get to shipitnation.com. There is 2 trials available now. There's a $9 day pass. You do not get the Discord, but you get all access to the content. So if you're just waiting around, you say, look, I'm only going to play Monday Night Football stuff, $9, get in. You can get the showdown projections for both DraftKings FanDuel, the Stone, Slate plan, and you would get Saber Sim for the day to be able to build those lineups with late swap, etc. And then the better deal for sure is just the best value here, the $19 for 5 days. You do get the Discord community, and you get 5 times the amount for double the price. So much better there. And then lastly, PGA just around the corner. I do want to note this because these deals are billed annually. If you are, some people said, oh, my PGA renewed and it's not for a couple of weeks. It's an annual pass, and those deals are grandfathered in. The pricing is changing. We have some big PGA news coming up in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. But if you are looking to get in to PGA now on the annual pass, I would get in ASAP because it's grandfathered in based on these prices. So just keep that in mind. Do with it what you will. I'm not going to drop all the spoilers right now, but there's definitely news coming on the PGA front. If you're planning on getting in anyway, now would be a good time. Also, last one piece here, DFS Mastermind. You can go join now, shipitnation.com/mastermind or dfsmastermind.com. We sent the emails out 1 million times in the last month. It ends in 2 days. This will no longer exist. There will no longer be a one-time option with any of the bonuses or anything. It'll all be pieced out separately, just like right now. If you click on them, you can see where you can go buy the courses and get them separately, depending on how you want to get them. You can buy one course, second course, or 2 for price of 1. Those will still exist, but the one-time option just to be done with it in lifetime forever will go away completely. And then lastly, on the news front, Nades, we had our Ship It Games round 1 finals yesterday. I want to just say quickly, congrats to Thunder Nation 44, Fedor 73, Mark JP9, High Topper, J Rydell, Hemo Guy, Mule 1JE, Bubba MSU, K-Dog 35A, by the way, was the number 50 Golden Ship It ticket winner and then got in. And then I put myself in the contest because I have to create it. It's a private event. And so in all technicality, Nades, I finished 7th in this. So that makes Philly Fan get in right now. There they are. Philly Fan 2002 finished 11th. The top 10 outside of me move on. But I just gotta say, Nades, probably gonna try and ship this whole thing now because I did win a seat one week and it went to the second place winner. And now I've made the finals of the first ever Ship It Games. I'm definitely trying to ship that thing when there's the 11 of us in it in 2 weeks time. So we'll get some more news on that. Anybody that was in it, we have to announce quickly, will be notified. If you were a winner, even the 12th place through 49th, because the couple that didn't get in, and those 2 will get it as well, you will get an email over the next week or so with the new year coming of what your credits look like and owed and all that stuff for your account and how you can use them. And then for the top 10 playing the first week of the playoffs, you will be playing down for the money as you can see it based on shipitgames.com, or just go to shipitnation.com and click that link up top. Matthew Bannister says, I've been following some of the mastermind tips and throwing some single entries into the 150 max lottery pool. Min cash is still, but making good progress thanks to you guys. That's awesome to hear. And I'll cheat a little bit, Nades. We're going to go to the perfect lineup as usual. But interestingly enough, here's the Millie Maker yesterday. BS Golfer, really good player. B Heel's been around forever. All these guys that usually play 150 have some sort of success, whether you know who they are or not. But 4 lineups, 1 lineup, 4 lineups. Shout out to our man Simon, 4 lineups, and then finished first in the showdown contest last night for $29K. 1 lineup, 4 lineups, 2 lineups. You can get the job done with that, and we will get to Furmaster, who got the job done here shortly. Nades, first up, take us through this perfect lineup. 48.7 spend, 237.84. You just saw Furmaster around 218 to get the job done, so very close to this lineup. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, first off, congrats to everyone who punched their ticket to the Ship It Games finals, right? $1,000 min cash there for all top 10, which I know a lot of those members, that's probably a pretty good chunk of change there with a shot to be one of 10 to get the 20K, right? The 20 stacks plus the lifetime membership or the year ultimate pass and everything else that goes along with our partners over at SaberSim that they threw in there. So congrats goes out to those 10 and yourself. Hopefully you can dunk on the field there and just have a nice little pat on the back, right? That say, hey, yeah, I won Ship It Games, but here you go. You guys can have the consolation $20,000, right? Prize pool there. But no, congrats to everyone over there. And overall, Ship It Games I thought was amazing all season long, and I tend to think our Discord thought the same too, and our members, right? So hopefully we can keep this going years in and years out, and maybe expand over to additional sports and things like that. We're just kind of tipping the iceberg there. So If you're not a member yet, shipitnation.com. I don't know what you're waiting for. PGA is going to be incredible right around the corner. Super excited for that, especially with the announcement of Leverage Lane coming over for PGA. And you want to talk about a fun sweat for that. PGA is a fun sweat, right? You get 2 sweats in one. You have 4 days of golf that your money can be tied to, and get the Friday golf sweat, and you can play it just like, the single entry stuff is going to be huge. I'm excited for that because now I can actually have a little bit more fun playing PGA, right? Most of the content, almost 99.9% of the content out there is all focused on MME when you got a field of golfers of 140 plus golfers in the field, right? And they're focused on MME and they're playing 70 guys, right? Well, how do you extrapolate that out to play 6 golfers from a field of 140, 150 plus into one lineup, right? So looking forward to that. But no, breaking down the perfect lineup here, the Drake May. I thought Drake May, I know you were on Drake May. I was on a lot of Drake May too. I thought that was a really sharp move because who was the guy below him for $300 less? Joe Burrow in that most popular game stack environment there. And Drake May's got an outside shot at the MVP, right? And no better spot than, hey, yeah, they know they can run the ball. They know they're double-digit favorites, right? 14-point favorites on the road here against the Jets. They know they can run the ball. But why not let just Drake May, who's having an incredible season and has kind of put the Patriots on his back all season long, right? And just let him run out there. And that's exactly what they did. I mean, they were throwing touchdowns when they were up 40, shit like that with Drake May. So I thought that was really good. The Ramondre Stevenson pivot right there. Not to say that you were going to go into the slate saying, oh, yeah, I'm must clicking on Ramondre Stevenson, but how you could have got there if you were in a Drake May, and we're going to obviously review this when we talk about the $20 Millie Maker, is Ramondre Stevenson was like 3rd on the team in routes. They were shorthanded, right? They had 2 guys out on the IL with I think it was Booty, and there was one other guy that was that were out. And he had already last week, he had already ran the 3rd most routes right there with those ancillary wide receivers 2s and 3s on the slate, even more routes than right there with guys like Hunter Henry, right? And he's $5,900 as a pivot off the chalkiest player on the slate who's going to be 50 to 60% owned in single entry stuff. I know that's not what he came in at, but there was obviously a lot of late swap stuff for people that were dead, swapping over to Tracy, swapping over some of those giant stuff. So going into the slate, Gentry, we knew it was going to be 50 to 60% owned. Stevenson, $200 less than tied to Drake May as a way to get different, right, with your roster construction there. The Chris Godwin play, I think Mike Evans was the guy that people want to go there, or Bucky, things like that. Chris Godwin's still been heavily involved ever since he's come back, and it's at the $5K price point right there where pivot off of those guys, those cheap Jacksonville guys, right, that everybody wanted to go to going into the slate yesterday. The Michael Mayer piece, I mean, I'll leave that for your rants because that just drove me nuts. Michael Mayer turned into peak Trey McBride. I mean, actually outdid Trey McBride, everything. I mean, overall, that was just a sheer laughing performance there that they scored 10 points and Michael Mayer scored all of them for the team. It's just the way the cookie crumbles when he's 45% owned or whatever he was. 30, I think he was like 35% owned in the mega.
In the ultimate, he was 38% owned.
Yeah, 40% owned. That's the time these kind of guys hit their ceilings, is when they're when it doesn't help anyone, it helps everyone, right? And then the Chase Brown, I think Chase Brown was sharp because I think he was sandwiched between Higgins and Jamar Chase in terms of ownership, but Jamar Chase was like double the ownership of Chase Brown. $7,400. It's also, nobody wanted to spend up at running back, right? They wanted to live in that Gentry range overall. So I thought him as a part of that most popular game as a one-off piece, how you could have got there is you talk about this all the time. How does the most popular game with a 53.5 point total bust? Maybe it's just by the running backs. If you're going to play one piece, maybe you just play the running back on either side and just get out of there cheap and hope that he does enough. Chase Brown's involved in the passing game, and he can just kind of slow the game down overall and just take enough from the other expensive plays in that game, the Trey McBrides, the Jamar Chases, the T. Higgins, the Joe Burrows of the world. And maybe it's just him that you need to get out of there cheap. And then the Giants defense, I thought was a really good play yesterday. Again, Geno Smith, we know, lead the league in sacks, right? Their just offensive line is miserable. But not only that, you had all of the chalk on the Raiders, guys like Trey Tucker, Michael Mayer, and obviously Gentry, who were going to be mega chalk going into that afternoon window yesterday. How do you leverage all of that? Well, you could just play the $2,900 Giants defense, who does have a good D-line against a very bad offensive line, and just say, hey, I'm not playing any of that, or I'm playing the stone minimum guy. I can still play the Giants D. Overall, I think the perfect lineup was pretty solid. I mean, I'll leave Charbonnet out there. I mean, that's just I think that was a terrible play. Kenneth Walker gets a million opportunities, just doesn't happen. And then as soon as they get inside the 5-yard line, 10-yard line, Charbonnet just trots his ass out there and just gets the carry and just punches it in there. Just a stone, just the stone worst. I think Charbonnet has like 12 touchdowns to Kenneth Walker's 5 on the year, something like that, which is ridiculous. Kenneth Walker gets them all the way down there, and then Charbonnet. So if it's not the running back twos, right, sabotaging these RB1s in the offense, it's their quarterback on their same team, right? I know that happened a bunch yesterday too, but overall, perfect lineup, pretty solid, and we're going to see a lot of this in the $20 Millie Maker. I think it was only like 15 points off or something from what the $20 Millie Maker was. I think $20 Millie Maker was like 218, so 20 points off basically from what the perfect lineup was.
Yeah, this was tilting to look at, because that's something that killed me. So my ultimate, I played one lineup in it yesterday. Couldn't have asked for a better start. I had Drake May, I had Stephon Diggs, I had Hunter Henry. So I had 3 Patriots, but not Ramondre Stevenson. And then I had actually a 4th in Kyle Williams to try just to sort of put it all together, make it work, no run back. I had Kenneth Walker instead of Charbonnet. I like the fact that I have been playing Kenneth Walker all season. Nobody was on him at all when he had a really good game the week before and was now going up against the Panthers. I get that there's always the split and this can happen, but that was just how I went about it. I needed some separation. I had to play it different than others. I went with, instead of Robinson and Giants, I had Tracy Jr. and Giants. The Singletary stuff was extremely annoying. I didn't have Chase Brown, but I started way hotter because I had Jamar Chase. So he gets rolling early and I'm like, oh man, maybe it's just going to be, him. And now he'll just pick up the catches and things like that. So that was a thought. And then I ended up having Travis Etienne Jr. in, and that was really frustrating. No Tootin, not on the – I said it yesterday, all day yesterday, and I kept telling you, but I'm so glad I at least stuck to my own on this, is I had a lineup that projected better and looked better, but I was like, you know what? Trevor Lawrence is going to be more popular. Burrow is going to be more popular. They both were in the ultimate than Drake May, with their other pieces especially and all that. And I said, I know what's going to happen. I played this game long enough that Trevor Lawrence is going to bust when it's this spot. And sometimes when he busts, it doesn't mean it's the running back. I really thought we would have got more out of Travis Etienne Jr. yesterday. He got his opportunities, but could not come through. But I love my lineup. It's just crazy. It's 100 points off, and I'm in like 6 of the same places almost. It's just that is the difference between a Charbonnet and a Walker, a Stevenson and a Kyle Williams Henry combo, right? Where he gets all the points instead. I mean, Henry got in the box, but didn't really matter other than that. I do like that this lineup was kind of set up where, you have leverage still built in. Like you've got Ramondre cutting into the Drake May. That's like the 3rd week now too, where we saw, speaking of Travis Etienne, it was Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne Jr. for 3. And then it was Burrow. And speaking of Chase Brown, it was Burrow and Chase Brown. This week it was May and Stevenson. So you're seeing that combo popping up a little bit more. And obviously when you have the cheaper price tags, you have some of the pass catchers out and things like that. This does make more sense on paper. This is going to be funny because yesterday was the day of like Charbonnet and not Walker, and who's the other guy? Singletary and not Tracy, and all these different things people see. I think tonight you could see a little bit of boosted ownership on Blake Corum for the showdown slate, and maybe it just ends up being Kyron because people are like, we can't play Kyron because Blake Corum's going to steal it all. Look at these backups. Ramondre instead of Trevion. Like, people just see all these backups do scores and what are considered backups, but could be a whole different story tonight. So I think this showdown slate's a lot of fun for today. We'll get there later. Got myself, Title, and Hoop back at 2 p.m. Eastern right here on this station. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you tap the thumbs up if you like this content, want more of it. But the rest of it makes a ton of sense to me. So I'm good with that. I was trying to find my lineup there, but we'll go to Furmaster. He was the winner. You said it, Nades. Same. Different up the middle. McBride, I think, was not on that one, which is funny. But yeah, made this one. And Giants D and May are the same. So only really Michael Wilson, Diggs, Washington, and McBride. And to me, this makes more sense. Congrats to them. That's why they end up winning. But I'm saying, like, this lineup makes a ton more sense than the perfect lineup. And it only scored 20 points less and still, boat race 218 to 205 and down. So congrats to Furmaster. 4 lineups. What's your thoughts on this one, Nades?
Yeah, I really like the setup because it played the chalkiest game, right? I wasn't really too keen yesterday on mini stacks in that Arizona, unless you do it in a way like this where it fades Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Joe Burrow, right? Most lineups with this kind of setup with Chase Brown, Michael Wilson, Trey McBride would have probably had, instead of Drake May, Stephon Diggs, they would have probably had Joe Burrow for cheaper and tried to find a way to get up to T. Higgins, right? Joe Burrow was what, $300 more or $300 cheaper. Um, uh, and then T. Higgins was 63. So they would have had to move something around. Could have pivoted the defense or down from Michael Wilson or something like that. But most plays that were playing two pieces or three pieces from that most popular game that everybody, right, the standalone game, the standout game that everybody wanted yesterday, Cardinals and Cincinnati. Most people that were playing three plays from that were having either Brissett attached, right? So they could have went in this. It would have probably actually been going down to Brissett in this kind of setup, and then up from Diggs to maybe Higgins or working something
Higgins and then just bump the defense a little or something,
right? Or up from Parker Washington, something like that, right? But overall, I think it was a really good setup. I think the Parker Washington play was really sharp because it was a pivot off of guys like Jacoby Myers, who was getting very, very steamed. I think Jacoby Myers came in at the fourth highest owned player on the slate, 26%. Travis Etienne was almost 20%. Trevor Lawrence was almost 20%. And Parker Washington has shown to be involved in this offense, even with the guys healthy. I know it seems kind of weird, but $4,800. I mean, I think that was a sharp pivot play there, and also a pivot off of guys like Trey Tucker, right, who are cheaper there from the Raider side of things. Some of those Giants plays that people swapped on late. So I think the Parker Washington play was really sharp as a pivot off of the chalkier Jacksonville game, right? Because that was the second game that everyone was going to. So he or she played the most popular games here in the Bengals and the Cardinals and the Jacksonville and the Colts game differently than what the field were, and not attached to their quarterbacks, right? Most people wanted, if they're playing a one-off piece, they were playing guys like Jacoby Myers, Travis Etienne, one of those two from that team, and Jamar Chase from the Bengals, right? Instead, he went in differently and then had it attached to your stack, right? Drake May to Stephon Diggs. Diggs picked up a lot of ownership, but how'd you cut into that? You added a third piece in Ramondre Stevenson, who's also a pivot off of Ashton Gentry, and tied in a correlated way to your offense, and just saying, hey, the Patriots are implied to score 30 points. They're going to score 30 points. I'm hoping it's coming from two very likely candidates on their team, right? It's a very good matchup for Ramondre. I know there's split talks there with guys like Travion Henderson, but I talked about the receiving splits for a guy like Stevenson. It doesn't take much to look up routes run on a team and see, and then put all the other pieces together on how it can be a leverage play from the field. So overall, I think this was a very, 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 very sharp setup in general. And people are going to say, oh, he played Mayer versus the Giants defense. I don't really care if I'm playing a player, especially a tight end as a onesie position. Granted, he used it in the flex, but he's still in minimum, right? I mean, you're not playing Mayer because he's going to go out there and score 70 points, right, and destroy your defense. I mean, Mayer can go 8 for 60 yards or whatever, and that's still fine. No touchdown even, and your Giants defense can crush, right? They could have got shut out, and Mayer still could have had 17, 18 points, and the Giants defense still could have crushed even more. So I don't hate that. And actually the Sims pushed that quite a bit yesterday just because of the salary and the way the type of the player it is, right? It's not say you're using a running back against an opposing defense. It's a onesie tight end position that can get there on PPR scoring alone.
Yeah, usually it's like defense versus quarterback is where people are like, okay, because if a quarterback has a ceiling game, it can still happen though. We've seen the Mexico game that time with the Rams and Chiefs, I believe it was like both defenses scored 25 and both quarterbacks scored 30 plus. It's like even then it can still happen. But of note, that's not going to make a difference. And the funniest part is he got the flame. Just these are fake flames. It doesn't even matter. Flames, whatever. Just noting more of the point of this in Mayer is to get the ceiling up top, and he got the ceiling here. He got the ceiling here. He got the ceiling here. He got the pretty good ceiling here. Funny enough, he didn't even get it from Wilson and McBride, but got a good enough number from them, but he got it out of Mayer. So it makes it even better. And then it got everything else to work. So the biggest part of this that stands out to me, and I'll go back to the Mayer thing in a minute, but just noting it, Funny, you need a double Mays. The Millie May curse, Drake May, Michael Mayer, you get them both in there. But just to note, if you look at it, Drake May could have been, I think a lot of people spending on McBride and Wilson would have Brissett in there. And you still would have been a nice lineup here if you had Brissett for May and you put Diggs to Higgins and you put the Giants to the Steelers defense, let's say. All would have made perfect sense on paper and wouldn't even be in the top 20, top 50. Like, who knows? Like, that's the difference that people have to understand when they say, like, oh, you're already reviewing the best lineups. We get that, but we're looking at them from all angles. And that's just one that I would bring up where it's crazy to say that, like, if this lineup had Brissett and Higgins instead of Diggs and May, it still would have made a ton of sense. You would have overstacked that big game in a completely different way. Brissett lower than Burrow. Higgins instead of Chase, but having Chase Brown to cut into those numbers. Having Michael Wilson at 7%, slicing it up some, et cetera, et cetera. And then you still would have had Parker Washington for leverage over Jacoby Myers. And really, ETN got steam and all that too. So Parker Washington made sense there. You still would have had Ramondre in that Patriots game as a good matchup on the ground. Maybe Henderson's not as healthy as we think, but I need a low-owned guy in there that can make it happen. If they score a bunch, everyone's on Drake May or Diggs or whatever. He still could have had Ramondre in there instead of cutting into him. And then you would have got another defense, similar ownership, similar spot that was popping in projection. So that's just the point of how, this is the best lineup and how it got there. But those little tweaks can still be really good lineups in a field of, this large, 132,000 plus entries, and get there versus not in a prime example where you could still see it good on paper. The Mayer thing is simple. Talked about this yesterday. Obviously, it was a great play. That's why he was owned. He was 2,500 as a backup tight end. It's just funny, like you said, is the ceiling hits when everybody's on them. Obviously, they're owned. It's all correlated. They're more owned because they're more likely to hit. And to your point, he wasn't needing. He actually could have got a 0 from Mayer in this lineup and still finished way up there. You drop Mayer down to 10 points instead of 17.9, and he still wins easily. So it's just the point of that's the whole product of the build. You don't need that much out of him, but when you get it, it's just more comical to watch. And I'm just more tilted because he took me out of the min cash in the ultimate yesterday because I couldn't play them all. And for me, it was like Genty, Mayer, and Jamar Chase. And I liked Tracy so much, and I liked the Giants D so much. The Giants D worked out. If any of those Singletary points could have been Tracy, it would have been better. But I'm saying, like, that's where I wasn't getting to Mayer and Genty. And I thought Genty was bad overall. Just, I mean, in the MME, you were going to get him. I wasn't saying it that. It's how you used him was important. I'm just saying, for me, I thought he was bad in that type of lineup because I only had one versus the field that I'm playing against. That's why it's important to know slate dynamics, what you're going up against, all of that. It's not like, I called that he would fail. I used a ton of them in MME stuff in different builds. Like if I had a Tyler Shuck with Olave, Austin, Kevin Austin, and Juwan lineup, then I'm fine to use Genty because I'm like way off the board already. Maybe Parker Washington is in it too instead of Jacoby Meyer. Like I'm just not using all the chalk together. Maybe I'm on a Tampa Bay, Miami stack that completely fades all of the Arizona-Miami or Arizona-Cincy game to hope that that's the game. Well, then Genty fits just so. I was just really careful about how you're using the play, right? That's kind of the thought process behind it. It's not who you play, it's how you play them, as I always say. That's where I was going with that. But yeah, this is an extremely nice build, a way to get a guy that would slow down and hurt Jamar Chase at half the ownership of Jamar Chase, cut into the McBride side of it. Most playing McBride and Chase would have one of those quarterbacks. They had none. Got Michael Wilson in there at a very low ownership to be able to get a piece of it, and then built out a bunch of points around it using Mayer to boost it all up, and then landing on a defense like the Giants that would still more so hurt Genty typically. Like if Genty had his big day with 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, that's usually not going to be ideal for the defense. And so just going Mayer only against that defense doesn't hurt it at all as a $2,500 stone min tight end that you can use in the flex as well. So with Bowers out, makes a ton of sense.
I think I'm just looking at his portfolio, right? Because it's easier to look at a portfolio with, I'm assuming, kind of virtual hand builds. I think it was very sharp on how they did it. So to your point, right, with that kind of setup, they had the other 3 lineups were all Jacoby Brissett lineups. If you look at them, and he only had one Drake May lineup, but he was making the bet that the only 2 Bengals he played was Chase Brown and Jamar Chase. And those both can get there without Joe Burrow. So instead of going to Joe Burrow in his 4th lineup, he went to a guy that could dunk on both of them in Drake May, right? Which I thought was a very, very sharp setup. Still played the Genty stuff. Had half of his lineups, right? 2 of them playing the Genty stuff. He was overweight. His leverage piece going in that he knew yesterday was Parker Washington. And that's how you get, if you have a hunch feeling, right? Guys were talking about yesterday, Rocket Sanders and that from the Cleveland backfield. If you have a gut instinct like that on one of these guys that's going to be fairly low owned, go in on it. Play, you only have 4 teams. Play them on all 4 teams. You're up against 150 maxers and 132,000 other players. So I thought the way he or she manipulated their portfolio here was very, very sharp, just looking at these 4 lineups. And I think that you can learn a lot from this if you are entering a contest where you have less than the max entrance and you're up, right? Pick your lane and stick with it. This person picked their lane with that Cincinnati, Arizona game, right? Just like many of us did. But the way they manipulated around and avoided the other popular spots, right? The Raiders spot and that Jacksonville spot, and just taking, hey, if that Jacksonville spot's going to fail, well, I have Parker Washington as most of that 11% or 12% ownership is tied to game stacks more than likely within that game. And I'm not on that game at all. He's my only piece from that game. So I thought that was a very, very sharp way to kind of manipulate the 4 lineups in this kind of contest.
Yeah, a couple of notes. I mean, I talked to someone about this again. You can't give Furmaster any advice. They've got $1 million, and I think it's incredible, the lineup that they won with specifically. But just of note, like I was glad to see they did go in a second lineup to the Brissett version of that. Like typically that would make the most sense, and this is very similar. It's Warren and Taysom Hill and Brissett that are different. So just noting that, like you could still get a piece of that. No Ramondre, so you get it through Diggs. Taysom Hill will definitely victory lap that. I can't believe he got to almost 15%. Horrible outcome for that. But I mean, yesterday we talked about it a ton. It was not going to be him again. They literally went on record and he was in tears in the press conference saying why that last game was the way it was. They let him throw the touchdown when they were blowing the other squad out at the end of the game. It was just like a farewell. So something like this lineup, I guess he had Genty in, but I guess my only takeaway would be for those building just 3 or 4 lineups. I know you stay in your lane, and I always say this too, so I don't want to sound like I'm talking on both sides of my mouth. And I say if you play lighter, play tighter. But I think, again, the inside-out concepts that we talk about over at Ship It Nation and DFS Mastermind, and you guys have heard me talk about on here. Same with the portfolio manipulation stuff that we talk about for people playing less lineups. That's why it's so important to be with Ship It Nation, Mastermind, things like that, where you can learn and actually get better. It's these little setups where, like I just don't, if you've got a lot, if you like these spots so much, I would think that you would want to have like a Tyler Shuck lineup, right? I think you'd want to look at having like a, where was the other one I saw? A Trevor Lawrence lineup. Like if you like ETN, and I mean, if you're on Washington in every single one, and if you're on ETN in a couple of them and that sort of thoughts, and you're willing to build lineups like this with May and Stevenson and Diggs, not to say this lineup would have got replaced. It probably wouldn't have been this one, but like this lineup isn't that much different than this lineup or this lineup. So why not in this one have Trevor Lawrence? And again, I'm not sitting here shitting on a Millie Maker winner. I think they did a phenomenal job. I'm just looking at little things we can take away. And when you got 4 lineups, I think you're still diverse. Everyone will say like, oh, I thought you said play tighter. It's like you are still playing super tight. You still have Chase Brown, ETN, Olave, Wilson, Genty, or whoever you have in here, Parker Washington, Michael Wilson. It's all the same guys that you are on from these other places. It's just ways to build it differently. So I'm thinking like of other thoughts. And if you're on Parker Washington in every single one, and you're on ETN in one and that type of thing, I would think one of these could have easily been a Trevor Lawrence, and it wouldn't have got you anywhere. I'm just saying more of thinking about for those that only play 3 to 5 lineups and how to play them. Nothing would have been worse for Furmaster. Again, it's easy to say now when they got the $1 million in hand, but nothing would have been worse for them having Parker Washington in every lineup and not, let's say these all finished in the 2000 range and saying, shit, I played 4 lineups. I was on Parker Washington in all of them. I was on ETN. I liked them to score points, but Trevor Lawrence is the guy you needed on this slate. And I didn't have him in any because I played 3 Brissetts in some of them where, didn't even really have to. Like these ones, some of them are just so close. I like him in this one. I would have liked him in this one too, because at least it would have made more sense. But I like this lineup the best, and it just happened to be the one that won. But of note, like these other ones, I think either a Shuck or a Trevor Lawrence version could have made sense as well. And I just think always be careful of that, because that's the number one complaint I hear from people when they're not winning the $1 million is they say, man, it sucks. I felt like I was in all the right places. I nailed the Parker Washington call or whatever it might be, and I just didn't have this. But you could have had that, is my point. So just, again, not a negative piece, more just a learning piece. I think that's important to look at when you're looking at some of the portfolio stuff. I wanted to look at something else today, Nades, being that we didn't have the 3333 is not up, as you guys can see. But Elusive Smoke is an incredible player. Those that haven't seen Elusive Smoke, I don't know, you must not be playing enough, because at the top of the leaderboards on DraftKings, FanDuel, across a bunch of different things, and always crushing it, multi-millionaire maker winner. And I looked at this yesterday, and the 333 Wildcat, Elusive Smoke, won it. It's not really about this. First of all, I love that it was the Tyler Shuck stack. That was my leverage lane this week when Alex took Achane. I like Shuck. I like Olave. I like Johnson. Part of it was the Taysom Hill factor that I talked about in there. He kind of just filled it out with good chalk after that. I like the Diggs, Breece Hall. Again, he's going to be using SaberSim. He's got a SaberSim logo, I'm assuming. He's using that, but just of note, I thought this was interesting. Did it with only 15 lineups. So I thought, out of, spirit of just looking at something different today and spending the last little bit, I wanted to see sort of how it was allotted here. And if you go to exposures and click on Elusive Smoke and look at the field, you can start to get a gauge. And this is what you want to do. Again, they happen to win as well and are an amazing player, but I like to look at amazing players and what they're doing. And 15 lineups, I play 3 to 5 in this sometimes, right, during the NFL season. So, I mean, you can get a handle off 15 lineups and how this looks and a way to play it differently. And I just thought that was interesting. Hicks, you could go look at. He's awesome. Kenny, this guy's amazing at every sport and crushes it across all 23 lineups, and you see similar 40, 45 players in their pool. Like they're playing pretty similarly. So just to look at it, Nades, see what we see here. I'm going to sort it by field, because I think that's just a better way to look at it. Like, what did the field do and what did they do across their 15 lineups? And then we can compare to other things, which is overweight Jamar Chase, but just over the field with Burrow, meaning still willing to play Chase in those other places. That's, one thing. Trey McBride, underweight, but it's because he got to almost 40%, probably looking to play the field. Diggs, overweight a little bit, and he got a little higher than I thought, so maybe it was going to be overweight on him. About field on Jacoby Myers, around field on Jackson Smith and Jigba, over on ETN, slightly over on Burrow, and I would have thought Burrow would have came in closer to that 18 to 20, so I think it was fine getting a little bit of an overweight stance that way. But what else do you see here? Like a stand on these two defenses, it looks like, that played against each other. What else do you see in this build? And then we'll look at some of the lineups.
Yeah, I see a lot of field at the top range, right, of like the very, very popular guys. And then I see tons of leverage on the lower range, right, when I think that's the important thing to note. Obviously, Jamar Chase, when a guy's going to be 50% owned, right, going overweight feels uncomfortable, but having the willingness to go 75%, 3/4 of your lineups to have Jamar Chase and say, okay, if he gets there, I have Jamar Chase differently than majority of the people in this contest with only 2,300 entrants, right? So I think that was sharp. But the biggest thing that stands out for me is going overweight on the lower owned plays, right? Picking your leverage from the bottom, right, where you can actually get the majority of leverage, right? Guys like Juwan Johnson. Well, naturally, if you're that overweight, right, 30% overweight on a guy like Juwan Johnson, naturally you're going to be overweight on the quarterback as well, right? So I think that was pretty sharp. The overweight on the Cleveland defense, when you knew the Eagles defense was going to be popular at 2,600, right? Going in, just because people have seen that's the lowest they've seen the Eagles defense, I think, all season. Right, it's the win. There was weather talks in that game as well, and it's Myles Garrett going for the sack record in division battle against Pittsburgh. Right, like I think that's pretty sharp there. And then the play that stands out here is the Jonathan Taylor. Right, going overweight on Jonathan Taylor at the top end, because you knew people weren't spending up at running back. If they were stopping at Chase Brown. So he matched the field with Chase Brown, and because he was matching the field with Chase Brown, who are the other guys in that range that could dunk on Chase Brown that you're getting leverage on? And if they do, that you have leverage on the field, Jonathan Taylor right there in the most popular game environment. Because if you look, I'm sure they're underweight on Trevor Lawrence stuff or with the field on Trevor Lawrence. I don't even see any
right here. Yeah, I was just going to go into that actually, but good call. That's part of it as well. Yep.
Yeah. So, like, if he's overweight on Jonathan Taylor, there's no reason to be overweight on the passing side. I mean, granted, Jonathan Taylor could be there, but if you're going overweight on a spend up running back, that's going to put you on a different roster construction in general. Likely that's going to cause, right? Look at, he's overweight on both the running backs, Jonathan Taylor and Travis Etienne in that game. So he's saying, hey, the passing game is where everybody wants to go. Going into the slate yesterday, right? Everybody wanted Trevor Lawrence again. Can't miss spot against the Colts. Jacoby Myers was super chalk. Parker Washington in this contest, I don't know what he came at, but in the $20, he was at 12%. He had to be higher in this contest. So everybody wanted the passing games. He's overweight on the running games, right? So I think that's a very sharp move there to flip the script when you're building a portfolio, you got to look at it that way, right? Yeah, you can play a lot more when you're playing more lineups, but how are you playing that a lot more differently and better than just playing more lineups to play more lineups, right? So I think it's very, very sharp portfolio, and no surprise, right? Obviously, one of the best players in the world out there. So
we'll look at it more in a second with the actual lineups. But yeah, the key component for me was still sticking to a tighter, again, play lighter, play tighter. Look at this quarterback pool. 5 quarterbacks, 2 of them in the big game, 2 of them in great spots, and Shuck. Like, just stick to your lane and run with it. Look, there's 5 quarterbacks on this slate that I like. These are the guys. And that's, sort of the thought process. It kind of tilts me a little bit now to look like my slate plan yesterday is Drake May, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, Tyler Shuck, and then I had Geno in there with some behind, but it's like, it was really tight there. He's high on the Shuck stuff. He was my leverage. Like, I wish I paid off yesterday a lot better, certainly, but just noting, this is another thing. Shuck is the overweight stance, Burrow overweight, but then you look at the others where they all at here. Trevor, field on Lawrence, field on May, a little bit over the field on Brissett, but I'm going to get my overweight on Burrow and Shuck. So it's like he's still making a stance here on 15 lineups. And then a lot of it does tie together, right? That's where you see Jonathan Taylor goes overweight because he's got 20% or whatever of Lawrence. I'm sure a lot of those are in those lineups. And look at your Tyler Warren about field, but Jawan over, everything that goes with the big over goes with the big over. Heavy, if he's heavy, has heaviest leverage as I've trademarked in the past, the leverage is on Tyler Shuck, 7%. He's got 27 almost. If you look at his leverage, Jawan way over, Tyler Shuck over, Chris Olave way over, Kevin Austin even has 6 almost when he's 6.2. Parker Washington came in even lower owned in this tournament, surprisingly. Like you said, you usually see it sort of correlate where it goes a little bit higher, but in this one, he was lower, and so were some of the other guys. And it's what you said. This is where he found his spots to get over 4,200, 5,200, 2,500, 3,800. Cup, he was overweight on. If you're not going to be on JSN, sometimes being on a guy like Cup would make sense at that price tag. I wonder if he had, how much was Shaheed yesterday? Do you know?
I don't know, but I also just found another thing that's really sharp. So he didn't play any Mayer, but look at his leverage at his tight ends in that same range. Jonnu Smith, 2,600, Gunnar Helm, 2,800. And so he's not only leveraging Mayer, he's also leveraging Taysom Hill at the same position with Juwan Johnson, right? So I think that was really sharp too. No Michael Mayer, and I don't know if it's because the thing is messed up. When I went to the leaderboard, the flex play was missing, so I'm assuming, I don't know. I think the site is messed up. I don't know if that's the reason. I'd be willing to bet that they played Mayer, but
that is actually, that sucks now because but hey, good exercise. Even if you didn't win it, I didn't go check it yet, and I can. But just one note, you just saw that. I hate when this site does that. Is they're missing the flex points, so we don't know where it came from. Which in this case, that's definitely what's caused.
The argument still stands the same, right? If you were to fade Mayer yesterday, well, you're overweight on guys in that range that can get there because you're also overweight, or you're also at the field at the top end with a guy like Trey McBride, right? And then in the mid tier, you didn't play Hunter Henry or any of those guys. You're well overweight on your spot, right? That you're going in on Tyler Shuck. So if you're not in on the Michael Mayer stuff, going to other guys in that range that can beat them straight up at much lower ownership and getting leverage on those guys, Gunnar Helm, Jonnu Smith, I think were really sharp overall.
Yeah, just a note. So good news. Elusive Smoke still did win 186.62. And it was with this lineup. It was Mayer in the flex. So we'll look at that further in a second. I definitely think it's interesting just to keep this in mind. Also, new logo I saw over for Elusive Smoke. So again, congrats to them. But this was the lineup that ended up taking it down. It just was quite a different follow-up. It wasn't all these same folks in behind them. So this lineup still did get the job done. I just want to see here, though. What was the other thing I was just looking at? So he still did play. If we go this way, let's see. So if you look here, it's like Shuck, Olave, Johnson. Maybe I'm wondering if later, if that's where like a Gunnar Helm or something came into play. And that was one thing we saw that he was on. But here is another interesting one. Like if you're on Lawrence with Jacoby, slice into it with like Washington, even Taylor at that ownership ended up being good, because if you're not on, this is another note, like again, people might not see this always, but if you're not on Travis Etienne Jr. at a very similar price point, so like you're doing it in a lineup where you would also be leveraging Travis Etienne Jr. with a lower owned running back that also fits the game stack on the opposite side. So we've seen this work in different ways, but you get a little 7%er. If you're not on JSN and you saw he had 20% JSN, maybe a burner fits in there. You've got Drake May, so you're still getting your pieces. You got Tyler Shuck. Notice that too. Like you see that? Like you're not getting Shuck or Drake May, but he's getting his Diggs and Olave pieces. You're not getting Cup or JSN, so you're getting your burner pieces. Like that's how these lineups sort of shake out. Now this is missing a flex at 43.9, so it is what it is. We're just gonna quickly breeze through, and some of the others are missing more. Just a disaster of a site, obviously, but just looking at this. Drake May, Diggs, Chase Brown, McBride, a different way to do it right there is a setup. Jamar Chase, but again, not missing a flex. So not with McBride in this one, has a Jonnu Smith in there, and then Indy D with Jonathan Taylor. Talk about portfolio manipulation. Oh, of course it wasn't a Trevor Lawrence or an ETN day, and Taylor and Indy D smashed them. Okay, great. I got Indy D and Jonathan Taylor in my Travis Etienne Jr. or Trevor Lawrence lineups, which you saw he had 20% of those and more on the ETN stuff. So it's like that's the portfolio manipulation, is you're getting coverage in the lineups. It's not who you play, it's how you play them, it's where you play them. This is the concept behind it all. The overstack, who knows what we're missing, but this is a way where you could probably get away with it, because you had this, right? You've got get away with Chase and McBride because you got a 4-man with maybe no run back. Now it could have somebody else in there. We can't see it, but just noting that. Trying to see what else. Hunter Henry, when you're not on the other spots, right? You're getting these moves around. Chase Brown with the defense going against Arizona when you're on Shuck, and you've got your other good. Look at this. You're not on Trevor Lawrence. You're not on Drake May, like your other lineups. So you get the pieces that go with it. I know some of it may seem second nature to others, but it's not the case at all. And again, if you're not looking to learn this game and learn from some of the best to ever do it, then I don't know what you're doing here, but that would be the point, is this is what we're looking for, is ways to reverse engineer. And I think that's where a lot of people get caught up in saying, well, with 150, it's easy. Well, this is 15 lineups. I looked, I played 5 lineups in this yesterday, and only one of them cashed. And it's just noting, like, that's how I went up and looked and saw who was in first. But it's, really, really good of Elusive Smoke to still get these high finishes and be able to get it done with just playing less lineups, right? That's
I think another good point is the one-offs, right? The Olave Diggs one-offs. Those guys can get there on PPR alone, right? Where your quarterback stack setup in your lineup can outdo the quarterback, or salary points per dollars wise can outdo their quarterbacks on those same teams, right? Because it's a cheaper setup, right? When you're going to a Tyler Shucks, that gives you or not Tyler Shuck, going to a different stack, right? Where you have those guys like in Olave, a Stephon Diggs that can get there on PPR volume alone without even needing a touchdown, which would really not help the quarterback that much outside of the 100 yards or whatever, the 80 yards or whatever that would help the quarterback, right? So I think that's also pretty sharp. If you look at the guys that he played as one-offs, Jamar Chase can get there without Joe Burrow, right? In this kind of setup. Diggs, Olave, right? He's not playing these Jackson Smith and JSN, right? He's not playing these other random one-off guys that, like, more than likely, if they hit their ceiling, their quarterback's going to be tied to him, right? So I think that was also a pretty sharp move, looking at the portfolio in general.
I found this lineup too is really interesting. Like, this is a great example of, again, not who you play, it's how you play them. So this lineup, what we see missing is a wide receiver and a flex. He had Kyle Williams in the wide receiver, so 2 cheapies, right, to be able to play. But he had Chase Brown with McBride, not Jamar Chase. If you're sliding in a 0.4, you got Tyler Shuck, but maybe as a good one-off, but you also have Kyle Williams. Once you do that, you can kind of do whatever you want. So, of course, his flex landed on Genty. That's how you use Genty. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what makes a ton more sense to me. A lot of Genty lineups with McBride would also have Jamar Chase or some more common setup than what we're seeing here. He was able to play all these guys together, but get different because how many people were playing Kevin Austin Jr. mixed with Kyle Williams in the same lineup in a way that made sense, because Kyle Williams is still the ceiling play. But if you're not on Olave and you're not on Juwan Johnson, but you're heavy on them everywhere else, of course, Kevin Austin can slide into this, and then he makes everything else work. And you're also not on Mayer. You're on Kevin Austin, which allows you to fit, instead of Olave and Mayer, you're playing Kevin Austin and Genty, for example. Just an example, and it'd be very close on whether or not it fits. Jerry Matt, my man, I hope you're having a good holiday season, celebrating your holidays over there. But he says, I get the weather, but impressive not to play any Eagles-Bills. I don't see any Eagles-Bills in his pool, even on the lineups that I looked up manually. I think that was just a bad game, right? It was obviously, it could have been better, but nobody was really on it, even though, and I explained this yesterday, slate dynamics, it almost was getting too cute. Not to say you were, like, could have got there, but like Jalen Carter being back for Philly, the weather being what it was, Josh Allen liking to sneak and take from James Cook, which he did, and Hurts can take from Barkley, but also the slate dynamics. Like I said, if every time you went to one of those guys, you were giving up Chase Browns, Travis Etienne's, real like leverage options on this slate. You were giving up McBride's, Jamar Chase's. There was actually a ton of options that were in much better spots. So while you could do that, and definitely I did too, and some in MME and stuff like that, I'm just saying why you didn't see a lot of that was why. And that's also why, like, when the weeks when the 2 tight end builds aren't popular, I'll go to Sean's point in a second and run through that one. But when you see the weeks where 2 tight end is like 2% owned by the field, and everyone's like, but the tight end smashed, I didn't see it happen. It's because nobody did it. And so if nobody's on someone, you always have to be super worried more. And that's why I talk about these plays people were bringing up yesterday, like R. Sanders. Don't even know who this guy is for this team. And it's like, oh, but he could do this, could do that. Sure. No one's going to have him, and you're not going to play him enough. And even if you do have him, and they do have their big game somehow, you're not going to have the other 8 pieces correct very often. So it's not being rude. It's just being factual and telling you, oh, in a way where you can learn from it and get better. You don't need that stuff. That's like, go bet their props. They could have a huge game that's definitely not good enough for DFS, and you still crush on the prop. So if you can find them even. So little things like that. This is an example. Not enough people even had Cook and Barkley. And in the end, there was actually lineups at the top of these tournaments where those could be a game changer. Our guy earlier that we talked about in Philly Fan in the Ship of Games round 1 finals was fading Cook and Buffalo D down the stretch. Cook got his chances, didn't get in. That would have hurt him, but that wasn't getting that person to the top. Like, Cook would have had to have a 30-point day to catch up to some of these other guys around him, and just in running back alone with Chase Brown there at 7,400. So little things like that are to be noted. And then, yeah, I didn't see any Shaheed. Thank you for that, though. It looked like he went with Kupp and Barner on top of it. And I'll go back and look at one more thing in a second. Actually, yeah, let me do that quick. I'm actually curious to see now. Elusive Smoke. If we sort by salary, I don't see any Kenneth Walker or Charbonnet, Kupp, Barner, and yeah. And then JSN, of course. But 20% JSN, that's what I'm saying. When he didn't have JSN, he had. I mean, this is just a DFS masterclass right here of building a pool out for less lineups. If you play less lineups and you don't take something away from what we just talked about there, I mean, that's where you got to spend time at then, because that is this is a masterclass on how to build a small group of lineups for a larger field setup. Like, your 2,300 is not the biggest field, but just noting, playing 50 in it as opposed to being able to play 70 in it is quite a difference. These numbers, again, aren't accurate because it didn't finalize, and some of these guys were much higher up the board. Like, I know Shady had a really solid finish up top there. But, I mean, these people are the crushers of the world that win plenty of money all the time. So it doesn't matter. It's just noting if you're looking at things This is a good point actually too, and then I'll get to Sean's final, and we'll end on that. Any final thoughts you have, Nades? But like the Peter Gibbons thing, again, amazing person. Met him a few times in person. Him, his wife, just good person to be around, fun person to be around, great guy. He wins a lot. He does. But just to note it again, like if you're comparing yourself to these players at these, these stakes, playing, 70 lineups in a 333, you just can't. You're not playing at their level. You're not playing in the same game they're playing. You don't have the same bankroll. Nothing is the same. So don't compare yourself to that. And even learning from it, you can't always learn from it because they can apply different things. They can take on different risk because of the bankrolls that they have. They're playing in different contests. You don't know if they're playing one way in this tournament and another way in another. They probably are. Anyone who's an ultimate member with us over at Ship It Nation and with SaberSim, you are playing different styles of lineups for lineup selection in different contests. But that's why I'm saying if you can find someone who sort of fits more your mold, like for me, I'm seeing this now, playing 15 lineups. The guys like, all these guys, Shrek and 1-800-EDDIE, and all these are good players playing 15 to 20 lineups. You can learn a lot from that. I played 5 yesterday. I can apply some of these concepts from 15 down to 5. So I think that's kind of a cool thing to take away from it there. And then hitting on Sean's point, Nades, then I'll give you final thoughts. I'll give it to you for final thoughts. I just want to note here, back to the trials, but just to note the Sean point that he made of the 2 tight end lineups. It's all what you hear, man. Like it's what you're listening to. That's why there's information overload, paralysis by analysis. Like you saw a lot of double tight end teams yesterday because Mayer was 2,500 and he smashed at chalk. You're of course going to see more teams when there's a stone minimum guy filling out 20% of the rosters, up to 40% of the rosters in some places. It's going to happen more because of that, but it's going to happen even more in the winners when you see him hit a ceiling score of 17.9 points. But I think what a lot of people were talking about was that there was other ways to build yesterday if you wanted to flip the build. But there was tons of ways that you could still build with it and make lineups that made sense, like we just showed with Elusive Smoke and all of that. But yeah, I would always say go with your gut on this stuff. It's your money. It's your investment. It's all how you got to think about it. Like if somebody's saying don't do something, I don't know. I can only speak for myself. I said I was looking at a ton of different builds yesterday that used 4 wide receiver and used 3 running backs and all that type of stuff. So, but did I have 2 10 lineups? Of course. It's just the point is it's usually it should be talked about. If your content is talking about always and nevers, run. It's wrong. Nobody knows shit. I tell you guys this all the time. We have some of the most experienced, most successful site in the industry playing at this stuff, and we're still wrong a bunch of the time. It's on takes, but that's why we're teaching process over picks and plays. Get better at the actual game. Play the game. The chess master. I can't talk about this one enough. They show up. The board is the same. The pieces are the same. The rules are the same. Both sides play the same, but the chess master wins more often than the random person just showing up that plays chess sometimes and knows how to play. Play the game. That's all you can do. The results are the answer sheet after. We don't know until today when we go and look at it, but what can we take away from it and apply so that we can find success in the future? I've had a bunch of success. Nades has had success. A lot of you in the chat have had success of your own. So it's like that's kind of the whole point here is take these learnings and apply them. That's what Ship It Nation's all about. That's what the Mastermind Project is all about. That's really what it's all about, is working together as a group to try and get better. Same common goals, same like-minded individuals doing it as a community to have fun and try and get better and be the best at what you can be. But don't compare yourselves to people that are playing millions of dollars a year if you play thousands. It's a totally different game, and there's nothing wrong with what you play versus what they play or how they got their money or how you only have X amount of money, whatever you want to say. There is no excuse for any of it. Not saying anyone's making any, just noting comparing yourself to those playing at the highest level. When people are like, oh, I wish I won like Utica or Mock Lovin or all that stuff. We all do. Maybe we all do, but maybe you don't. You don't know what their day-to-day life is like or what their stress levels are or entering the lineups and all this different stuff. You have no idea. So play your game, worry about yourself. These are DFS lessons, but also life lessons that I can't speak enough to. I think it's important. Just live in your own zone, focus on what you can control, worry about what the money you have, the tournaments and lineups you're putting in, work on getting better every day, focus on that, and hopefully the success will find you. And surround yourself with good people. We talk about that a ton. Nades, final thoughts to you, man. It's been a fun season breaking down the takedown breakdown on this this channel for the NFL season, but that's going to be it for the season after this one. We're not doing week 18, which is a preseason week, but it's a fun week. I'll hit on more in a second. Final thoughts from you before we get out of here?
Yeah, no, just kind of echoing that. I mean, it was still pretty similar yesterday. I mean, tight ends have obviously been broken in terms of price all year, but still 42% played tight end in the flex of the $20 milli maker, 34% played running back, and then 25% played wide receiver. So it's been pretty consistent. Obviously, the difference is 60% of the top 1% lineups are double tight end, right? So like obviously that's where you see all the winning in. Again, it goes back to the content overload and paralysis by analysis, right? There's a million shows out there, and how do they get views and clicks and things like that is hot takes and this and that, and oh, fade this and fade that, right? It's not picks and plays. It's roster construction, game theory, and playing the game within the game, right, is the biggest thing. And if your content's still stuck on the picks and plays, or this guy sucks because of that, or this guy sucks, that guy sucks. I mean, they're all NFL football players. None of these guys suck, regardless of if they suck for you because you played them in your lineup, right? That's where that kind of stuff comes in. So again, if anyone out there is looking for just a site that just focuses on the game within the game and getting better at the game and letting the results just happen, that's where you're going to get better. That's where you're going to grow as a player. And that's what we do over here at Shipping Nation. It's not a sales pitch. It's just facts. It is. And it's not a pay to find out, right? You see the trials up on the screen. You can get in and you can check us out in the Discord. I know NFL is rounding out to the close here through the playoffs. Obviously, we'll have you covered all the way through the playoffs, and there's good contest there. But PGA is very, very similar to roster construction, and there's tons of Duke trains and things like that, right? And there's a way to play the game within the game, and I'd be willing to bet that we have the best PGA team in the industry. I know a lot of people say that, but it's proven time and time again with our projections and the success we have, especially in Showdown and things year in and year out. So if you're looking for a spot, check us out. But yeah, no, final thoughts. It's been a great season. Appreciate everyone in the chat. Obviously, we know this isn't our highest viewed show in general, but we do it because it helps Tambo and myself. It helps a lot of our members, and it helps a lot of you in the chat. So we appreciate you hanging with us and everyone watching back on playback. That's why we do these shows. We don't do these shows because they're a huge view show. It's our least viewed show across the company. We're transparent about that. And it's not to say that we're cutting the show because it's our least viewed. We're keeping the show. It's a very important part of our show. And everyone who listens to it and has followed these shows, we've seen success. Many of you have come in the chat and dropped by and said, hey, I've watched these shows. I'm starting to have success, right? NYG fan had a hell of a Sunday. He's been on these shows in the past, right? If you're not reviewing your process before and after, you're just doing it wrong, and you're at a disadvantage to the field, which this game is already hard enough to win at. Controlling the controllables, things that you can control, like reviewing your portfolio before you enter and after you enter to make changes going forward. If you're not doing that, you're just at a disadvantage, and that's where the tilting comes in, and that's where you start listening to a bunch of content and trying to piece everything together. And when you start getting into that realm, it's just very, very, very hard to be successful at this game.
Yeah, no to this one. I've always said this, and it's a way different situation, right? It's the setup of the contests are different on every given week, so there's weaker setups that way, and it's not that we don't do a ton of different stuff. But I think in PGA, reviewing after matters, but I'm saying what really matters and what we focused on, and that's why this has been renewed, is because we are going to focus on the Leverage Lane show instead. And this with myself and Alex Blickel is going to be back for PGA. You're going to learn way more in the before than in the after in PGA. It's just the way I think it is. And that's my 2 cents on it, but I'm always for that. I think it's important. So yeah, it's not going to happen for that one. And it's different, but just of note, you'll get a ton of learning out of it anyway. So I think that's important to note. As Nate said, the PGA content, I mean, we got it loaded up, projections, DraftKings and FanDuel, both. Showdown, projections. We have a stone. This is the be-all, end-all for PGA DFS. Again, even if you wait and get a trial, it's up to you. But just everyone will be checking us out for PGA once they see it again and get the news. The slate plan for the Showdown. We have the stone for the main slate. We have the slate plan, the value report. We've got the value report and the course rankings from our guy Lee Aldrich. We have the legacy pieces from our man DGen, RIP to our big guy in the sky with his DGen's notes. We've got more notes that are unreleased that he had that the team is going to put together this year and get them onto the site. We've got DGen's scorecard that you can check out as well, and all of our tutorials for PGA. And then SaberSim, of course. And then with the education courses, there's a ton on PGA as well. If I just click that and go over, you can see you can access the full course there. It's 3.5 hours, and it breaks down everything about a process. It talks about roster construction, live finals and qualifiers. There's a PGA mega course coming out that will be up and available for Mastermind members. So again, if you want to get in there before the end of the year, make sure you go to Mastermind. You got 2 days left to get in. It starts January 14th will be the first leverage lane and kickoff to the season, but that is the first technical week of the season. The Sony Open is what it's called. And then we've got the Sony, the Amex, the Farmers, and then the Waste Management Open is the weekend of the Super Bowl. Luke will be doing his own thing this year. So that any spoiler alert, that's not the news that's coming. So I'll tell you that right now, but shout out to our guy, Luke. Awesome dude, helped us out a ton last year, but obviously that means we've got something else coming that I'm very excited about. So yeah, PGA is going to be a hell of a season. I'm excited for that. Anything else that I can think of, I'll let you guys know. But yeah, congrats again to our Ship It Games winners. Anything else, let us know in the Discord or hit me up, tambo@shipitnation.com, info@shipitnation.com. Thank you guys all for this. It's going to be a fun PGA season ahead. Let's get the rest of this NFL season back today, 2 p.m. Eastern, Hoop, Title, and myself to break down the Rams at the Falcons. For Nades and for myself, ToeTagginTambo, thank you so much for watching this season. Let's ship it.